podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion, the podcast which covers cricket and horse racing. If you are a regular listener of the show, you will now be familiar with Ron Hutchinson, the famous Australian jockey, now 95, who first rode back in the 1940s. In today's show, Ron answered questions from some major horse racing names like John Gorton, Richard Pittman and Chris Pitt, all previous guests of the show. As ever, Ron was in remarkable form as we chatted about his racing around the world from Singapore, Melbourne, Ali Pali, as it was known, and the home of racing, Newmarket. As ever, with Ron, you are in for a treat. Enjoy the next 20 minutes. Right, I've got some questions from some people now, right?
Yeah.
So you'll be fine with these. First one is from a friend of mine called Shane Meaney, who was the racing manager for Racing New South Wales. And he asked for your thoughts on riding in Singapore and the shock news that the course is going to close in October 2024 after 180 years of racing.
Yeah, well, a big disappointment, Steve. I spent for nearly 3 years in Singapore and Malay racing, and I enjoyed it very, very much. It was good racing and good tracks, and I was quite surprised when I heard that Singapore, especially Singapore, because it was very vibrant and a lot of people enjoyed themselves there, and it was good racing, and it was a good place to be at that particular. I retired from racing in England when I went to ride in Malaya, and I'd turned 50 years of age, and I spent the next 3 years riding in Malaya, and as I say, I enjoyed it, and I was quite surprised when I heard it was going to close. It'll be a disappointment, you know.
Right, my next one is from Jeff Lester, who was a freelance journalist and broadcaster with the Sporting Life, the Racing Post, the Racing Channel. Yeah. And he asked me, how much did it hurt losing the Derby ride on Charlottetown in 1966 after getting beat in the Lingfield Derby trial?
That's right. Well, I remember that very, very well, to be honest. So, yeah, I remember that very well. Yeah, that was a very unfortunate thing from my point of view, because Charlottetown had, I think he had some feet troubles or foot troubles when as a 2-year-old before he started the racing. And, of course, he was a bit underdone. And unfortunately for me, I got too far back on him in the Lingfield Derby trial, and I came home sort of a million mile an hour. He ran second to Black Prince, and anyway, I thought he had a great chance in the Derby. But about a week before the Derby, I got a telephone call, and it said, Hutchinson, Werner speaking. He said, we've come to the unanimous opinion that you don't get on the horse well with the horse, and he said you won't be riding him in the Derby, and hung up. I never had time to give him a thought or say what happened or anything like that. So the next thing, I was just so disappointed, and I rang old Scobie Beasley. I said, what do you think they've done to me, Scobe? He said, I know. He said, and I'm riding it. So, unfortunately, that's how the situation with Charlottetown, who went on to win. And he beat a horse called Patron at that time. And Mr. Lilly, who owned Patron, wanted me desperately to ride Patron in the race. But, of course, I couldn't, because I was retained by Gordon Smythe at the time, and I couldn't ride it. So I had a both disappointment, because I'd won the Observer Gold Cup on Patron, and he was a very promising, good 2-year-old, good horse. And Paul Cook rode him and ran second. So I was doubly disappointed, really. So never forget it.
No, sounds like it, and I can understand why. And the telephone conversation you had, very abrupt, wasn't it?
Yeah, very, very, very much so. Yeah, but I did never. I can assure you, I didn't have any time to think about it or give an answer. It was just over and out as such, So disappointing, but never mind. That's life.
Right. Well, next question is from Richard Pittman, leading national hunt jockey, worked for the BBC for over 35 years. And he sends his kind regards to start with.
Yeah.
And
Love it.
he asked, how do you think riding styles have changed since your day?
Oh, gee, well, now that's a question. Yeah, in my time, of course, the minimum weights were starting off at 6'7", which is I think it's about 41 kilos. Which that was the minimum weight in the handicaps out here in Australia, and so you had to be a very, very tiny little man or jockey to ride that weight, And now, of course, the weight's gone from 41 kilos now to 54, 53 kilos a minimum. Well, in my time, if you rode 54 kilos, you were considered a jump jockey. So that's how the difference is. And of course, trainers were 6 foot tall and jockeys were 5'3". Now the jockeys are 5'10" or 6 foot or 6 foot nearly, some of them, and it's all changed. The style has all changed. So it's all different. It's all totally different. Yeah.
Have you got a jockey you admire yourself today?
Here in Australia?
Well, worldwide.
Worldwide. Well, of course, I follow the racing here in Victoria. There's a very good rider, I think, here, a fellow called Blake Shin. He's a young man. He rides extremely well. And Damien Oliver, he's got, I think, now he's getting near a retiring age, but he still gives them a good ride. There's a couple of girls here that ride quite well. A girl called Jamie Carr rides well, and a little girl in Sydney rides well. Rachel King, I think her name is. They ride extremely well. Another girl called Linda Meach, she's quite good too. So, as I say, in my time, the girls weren't even allowed to work in the stables, let alone be a jockey. So, as you can imagine, it's all new to me.
Yeah, Royal Ascot this year, we had 3 winners for Holly Doyle, yes. And Hayley Turner rode a winner as well.
That's right, yeah, she rode. I watched that on the other night because I'm very good friends of Terry Henderson, the owner of Docklands, and I watched it very, very closely, and she gave it a good ride. And the same as Holly Doyle, they're quite good. They can make horses go, which is great. It's great, and you can just imagine all those little girls that work in the pony club with their ponies, and they'll want to be a Holly Doyle or a Jamie Carr when they grow up. So it's all very good for racing as far as women is concerned.
Do you remember Richard Pittman on the BBC and riding as well?
Yes, I didn't know him all that well personally, but I knew him, of course. But my admiration over there at that particular time was Johnny Franklin. I thought Johnny Franklin was a great. He was a flat jockey. He had style. He had courage. He always went the short way. I was most impressed with Johnny Franklin. Yeah, very good. But there was Terry Biddlecombe, Dave Dick. They were all pretty good jockeys in my time too. When I used to watch racing, it's good.
Did you ever have a race over hurdles?
No, my heart wouldn't have been there. God, I wouldn't have. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have had the courage for them to jump horses over in racing for sure. Mm.
And who would be the greatest jockey? Leicester, Scobie Breesley?
Well, look, Scobie was my idol from my time I started off as a jockey in my teens, and I always admired Scob, and not only as a jockey but as a person. We became very good friends throughout, and he took me under his wing as a young boy, and I would give Scob my number one, but Lester, without a doubt. He was strong, he was keen, cool, calm and collected, and a good thinker in a race. Very, very good. But over in England at the particular time, Joe Mercer was a good jockey. Jeff Lewis, he's a personal friend of mine, great jockey too. So, over the time, with Leicester and in England, Yves Saint Martin in France, they're all top jockeys, real top jockeys. And I'm very honoured to be having ridden with them. So it was very great.
Ron has been my guest on episodes 142, 143 and 205. Here's a short clip of our chat in episode 142, when he recalled riding the winner of the 1966 Goodwood Cup for Queen Elizabeth II. And just keeping on a royal theme, you also rode some winners for the Queen as well.
Yes. As a matter of fact, my very first ride for the Queen, was one called at Lingfield, Captain Boyd Rochford. I was able to ride for him, or he asked me to ride a horse called Orbiston, which was owned by the Queen, of course, and luckily enough, it won. And then I was lucky enough to ride the Goodwood Cup winner for her on Galway, at one of the Goodwood meetings in August, which was a great thrill and yes, great honour. So, to ride for Her Majesty.
Right, I've got two or three more. I've got one from Chris Pitt. He's an author and racing historian. His home course was Birmingham. What do you remember about riding at Birmingham?
Yes, lovely big course. Yeah, long straights as most of the top races in England. Yeah, Birmingham was there. I had quite a lot of luck at Birmingham. It was great, good, and as I say, the track and Birmingham racecourse was great, very good.
That closed in 1965. You also rode at Hurst Park, which closed in 1962, and Lincoln, which closed in 1964.
Yeah, well, yeah, and what year did Alexander Park?
I think that closed about 71, I think.
Yeah, was it? Yeah, well, that was a unique track too. Pally, as it was called, and because the mile start would be at the winning post, down the straight, around the turn, and then up for a mile, up to the winning post. And if it was a mile and 5, you started the same down, and you went twice around the loop and then back to the winning post. It was a unique race course, I think it was very popular too with the people from London. It was pretty close to the centre of London, so everybody. Yeah, that used to be great meetings there for sure.
It was a bit of a tight course, wasn't it, Ali Pally?
Oh yeah, yes, around the loop, as you would call it, the frying pan, as they used to call it in those days. Yeah, around the pan, you go round twice for. I've been. I remember Leicester coming back from France, and he was riding something that was pretty good, and he nearly went around the wrong. He was going to go around the wrong way, and they all shouted out, "Leicester, another round!" Sort of. The jockeys told, and of course he went around, led all the way. Of course, it won. The one that he rode. So but it was a very tight, as you say, very tight track.
I've got a question now from a former jockey, John Gorton, who he won the Oaks in 1969. He now lives in Borneo, and he asked, really for us listeners, really, about your memories of the jockey room, the weighing room, the characters in the weighing room.
There was a lot of atmosphere in the jockey's room in those days. The valets were all pals of one another, and we were all pals of them, as I say, the little bit banter between, sort of Frankie Durr or Jimmy Lindley or Joe Mercer or Jeff Lewis, or it was all great. I enjoyed it very, very much. Yeah.
And you were made welcome as an Australian.
I was, yes. I think I was only one. Well, there was only one jockey that didn't like. I don't think it was old Eepy Smith. I don't think he liked me very well. But anyway, that was by the way. Anyway.
Now I've got a question from myself. Now you never won the Melbourne Cup.
No.
Is that a big regret of yours?
Yes, it certainly was. I ran second. On a horse called Grand Prince way back in, I think it was in 1961. I ran second, and he turned out to be a pretty good horse, Grand Prince. But anyway, I was unlucky enough to run second. I ran third a couple of times on Pandy Sun and Morse Code. They gave me good rides, but I was unfortunately. From an Australian jockey point of view, it's like English jockey wanted to win the Derby. Melbourne Cup is the Australian equivalent, and so every jockey wanted to win the Melbourne Cup. So unfortunately, old Scobie never won the Melbourne Cup, or George Moore, and they were champion jockeys. So I'm not the only one.
So when you rode in the UK, did you go back to Melbourne to ride in the Melbourne Cup, or?
Yes, I did. I used to go back, during the winter time, over there. When the racing closed down, I'd come back and ride here in Melbourne. I used to go to Western Australia in those days, because those in the 70s, Western Australian racing was pretty big. There was the mining boom over there with the Poseidon. Mine was going good, and there was a lot of money being thrown around in those days in racing, and it was booming that was in the Christmas, around the Christmas time, and it was first class racing in those days in Perth, and luckily I had a few winners there. I had a few winners, and so I used to enjoy it very much.
Did you like the challenges of riding at Newmarket?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, it was wide open spaces and up a hill and down dale type of thing. But it was certainly a great race course. And July Cup horse was a bit different to the one on the 2,000 guineas. They're a bit different, but both great race courses. For sure.
And were they happy days when you spent in Newmarket?
Oh, yeah. Well, every day was a happy day for me in England when I was over there. I enjoyed every moment of it when everything was different. As there's so many races run, whether you're up riding at Brighton or you're riding at Wolverhampton. It's every day's different, and every situation's different, and to be riding there for 7 days a week, it was on all go. That was you never had a dull moment as far as I'm concerned. It was
because you rode for Jack Jarvis and Harry Ragg, I think, in Newmarket, yeah.
That's right. Yes, I did. I was retained by Jack Jarvis, and I was retained by Harry Ragg. And Jeff, of course, I was with, and his wife Tricia. I spent a lot of time with them travelling around. We went to sort of Italy and Germany and all those sort of things. So, I've got some very happy memories of Jeff and Tricia's wife.
But you love the atmosphere of Newmarket with all the horses.
Well, yeah. Well, it's a real horsey town, isn't it, Newmarket? And in those days, of course, the strings would come out at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was just to ride work there was exciting, and great. Harry Ragg had some very nice horses, and so Jack Jarvis. I rode some very good, nice horses for Mr. John Phillip, Jim Phillips, and they're very good horses. Great nephew. They're all good, nice horses.
That's all from Ron in our Q&A. Special thanks to Ron, 96 in December, and to his son Peter, a Group 1 winning jockey, who arranged the interview. Thanks again for listening to The Paddock and the Pavilion. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google or Spotify.
Sports Social Podcast Network.